Salutations everyone, that was Primus with Sgt Baker. I'm Sergeant Formula 1, and this is a quick track guide I made using the 1963 Lotus Type 25 Climax for a Azores circuit. This track is essentially a circuit de Monaco, but in Project Cars 2 it's called Azores circuit, probably because of licensing. In the racing league I run, we're running the Monaco GrandPrix 1963 variant as close as we can, so we don't use the Nouvelle chicane, which is the left, right, left after you come out of the tunnel. Regardless, I hope this helps out anyone just trying to learn the track. I tried out something different for this video, and I taped my phone to my helmet to try and make it easier to give you guys my perspective and make it simpler to guide you around the circuit. We're about to find out if that was a bad idea. Anyway, on to the circuit guide. First and foremost, you need hands. As long as you have hands, you're well on your way to becoming a Monaco Grand Prix master. And if you wanted to race with us, all you would need from there is an Xbox One, an internet connection, an Xbox Live account with an Xbox Live Gold membership, a racing wheel with some sort of wheel stand, a TV, a general understanding and love for racing, a helmet, plenty of become fluid, a member of our forum, time, patience, a positive respect attitude for other drivers, a copy of Project Cars 2 off, for good measure, a good old brew to celebrate when the day is done. Alright, enough of that shit now that we're almost 3 minutes in. My bad. Exiting the pits, we take a left. It's a clockwise circuit. We can drive as fast as we want down pit lane because there were no speed limits. However, we still gotta stay inside the pit line here. It's pretty tight up here by St. Duval. You're gonna have to shift down like I did to second gear to get the speed you want. And here's a flying lap. I'm going around the last two corners, usually 18 and 19, but now for us it's 16 and 17, because of course we don't have the Nouvelle chicane. We just passed the start-finish line. We're coming up to St. Duval. Ease on the brakes down to third gear. You're going to want to get a nice turning so you don't hit the wall. Going down the bill, you're going to want to keep your car as straight as possible. Get as close to the railings as you can without touching them. For this, you're going to want to brake even softer. That bump, you might want to even coast over slightly. Now turn 3, the Massonet. Turns 3 and 4, I like to keep it in third gear. Later on in the race, you might be able to get it up to fourth. You're going to want to slightly go over to the right to avoid the bump, so you don't lose traction for the Mirabelle. Turn 5. You're going to want to brake earlier than it looks for the Grand Hotel hairpin here, turn 6. And if I had a cool steering wheel, I'd have to do that, but I don't. Turn 7 and 8, the Mirabelle Basse and Portier. Those two turns require the smoothest footwork out of the entire circuit. If you noticed, I was braking while I switched up to second gear. Now we're in the tunnel going up to turn 9. You're going to need to let off the accelerator because you don't have aero. And this is actually fun for a change. Drive straight through the Nouvelle chicane. And our turn 10 to Beck, you're going to want to brake sooner than it looks there too. The tricky Louis Chiron, 11 and 12, I haven't got my car perfectly set up for that. You're going to want to brake for this chicane, the pool, even sooner than it looks as well. Coming up to La Rassas. Second gear most of the time, sometimes first when you're starting off. And there's the pits on the right, and 16 and 17. For the Lotus 25, you're going to want to keep your RPMs somewhere between 8.5 and 9, because this engine overheats quickly. You're going to want to open up your radiator a lot. And for turn 1, you have to keep at least 2 tires past those lines there on that curb. You don't want to get penalized, even though that we have the in-game rules and regulations turned off, so that way we don't have speed limits like they did back in the day, and we can drive right past the Nouvelle chicane. You still have to abide by the track limits. Remember to veer off slightly to the right by the Grand Hotel there to avoid the bump. Remember to be really smooth right here, otherwise you're gonna hit that railing very easily, as well as that railing and that railing right there before the tunnel. In 63, the Nivelle chicane was actually just a left-right-hander, and there was hay bales, so you kinda had to slow down, but not like today. And there's me pointing to my gauges to remind us to really watch our temperatures. Turns 11 and 12, the Lewis Chiron. I believe I had all 4 tires past the curbs or the track limits at turn 12 on the first flying lap I showed you guys. Try not to do that. It is hard sometimes though. My biggest advice for this car, and especially this track, is just be smooth on the accelerator and brakes. A little bit of oversteer as I push a little harder. It wasn't easy driving with the phone taped to my helmet, obstructing my view a little bit. And right there, the Tibet wall railing caught me. Now I'm showing you how to enter the pits. And you don't have to stay inside the line for entering the pits like I did there. On to setups. First of all, force feedback. If you have a Thrustmaster wheel, this is definitely what you're going to want to use for your force feedback in the game, taken directly from the Project Cars 2 forums, from the SimGirls thread. Now for our league, we strictly only use the vintage tire because that's what they used in 1963. The tire pressures I have here might be a little hard to read. The front left is 14.79 psi. The front right is 15.08 psi. The rear left is 13.49 psi. And the rear right is 13.78 psi. You're going to want to keep your back tires a little softer because naturally the front tires do all the turning, so they're going to heat up a little faster. And because of the nature of the circuit, the right side tends to heat up a little faster, so I lowered the left side's pressure a little bit. I moved the brake balance forward a little bit because of some of the downhill braking, and I went with quite a soft brake pressure at 82. You're safe to lower the ride height a couple notches for this track. I believe I lowered the caster angle and then I raised the camber angle for the front and the back. You can do all that evenly. I try not to mess with it too much, but what I did helps a little bit with turning and cornering. I don't mess with the dampers too much because I don't really know what I'm doing that well, but what really helps me is lowering the fast bump and the fast rebounds. You might want to lower them slightly more in the rear, but what it does is it makes it feel like your rear tires are turning along with your front tires when you're cornering, and it just makes the corners so much smoother, for me at least. Alright, even though we're coming to the gear ratio section last, this is where you should come first. For Monaco, you're going to want a higher gear ratio. The Lotus 25's highest is 6.5. It only has 3 final drives. I have 35 laps of fuel because we're going to be doing 33 laps on the circuit I just showed you. That's about an hour's worth of laps. The default radiator opening with the stable setup is only 30% opened, but I've got it all the way open to 95%. It needs air bad. Me and one other guy from my league both blew our engines on the second lap with a closed up radiator. For your individual gear ratios, you're going to want to have it set so that you're almost redlining at the end of each corner before you slow down in the current gear you have selected. Well, that's about all I've got. I hope you learned at least one thing from me. I'm Sergeant Formula 1, and I'll see you on the track.
It's not America, it's La France.